Welcome back to Guild Wars Prophecies. We're continuing on with finishing out Pre-searing. I spent most of the last video honestly trying to figure out where we'll take care of this in a little bit. That was weird. I mean, I know what it's for. I remember that happening when I used to play years ago, but it seems like I remember it when it started too. I think the issue is supposed to be that you're supposed to... I don't know. I can't remember now. Anyway, time to respec for swords. Like I was saying, I spent most of the last video just kind of getting my wits together, and now we're moving forward. A couple of things that I still haven't decided on yet, but I think it's time. I talked about, the eye pull levers well bought last time. I'm still getting horrible lag. I think it's sometime towards the end of these videos when I finally figure out what's going on and I fix it. Or figure out how to fix it. Anyway, I'm running a little bit behind, and of course everything keeps freezing. And I just make it barely, and thankfully that screen's right there. And it stays open once you're on the other side. It's purely a trick for getting you to party. The Northlands are pretty amazing. Unfortunately, I don't run all the way through everything. It would have been great to kind of show how all of this looked in this part of the game compared to the later part of the game. And we had a disconnect there. So we get to start back over again. And you can see we have horrible latency. The rubber banding is terrible, just freezing, bouncing back and forth. I don't know how in the world I made it through all of this. That little building way up on the right on the hill is how you get to a pretty large area way off to the right. Completely filled with char, most of them level 5 up to level 10. Something I would probably have quite a bit of difficulty dealing with where I am right now. I'm still not entirely sure I made the right choice in choosing, but I have to get to level 20 and have to get to a stage much later in the game before I can actually change it. The quest that we have to do over here is, what was it, across the wall, over the wall? I can't remember what it was called. And I've got to figure out. There's a ranger, I think, that's hanging out here. He's kind of gotten himself trapped between some grawl and some char. And I can't remember how to get through any of this. And it turns out that right up here, if I would turn left, is it left there? No, left one step further on. And instead I head all the way back, turn right, and loop all the way back around, which you can do as well. But I've got to go get a ranger and then escort him back to the gate. Anyway, we'll get caught up to him in just a minute. Okay, this area right here, this little courtyard area that's still, apparently well maintained, it's some kind of gated storage area, is called Piken Square. It'll play a role in the second part of the game as one of the outposts that you don't have access to early on and have to fight your way to from Ascalon City. It's actually obviously used to be kind of an outside area. A lot of the architecture is very similar to what's found on the Barradin estate. Actually, those two areas out front, looks like there might have been waterworks here too at some point, and it just the Ascalonians obviously maintained just the fence as something in order to keep it in shape as a storage area. One of the fascinating things, and like I said again, they kind of ruined it all in Guild Wars 2, but in Guild Wars, the Ascalonians haven't actually been in this part of the world for all that long, just like a couple of 100 years. Before the Ascalonians took this area, the Char mostly lived here. So this was originally Char territory, except that all of these ruins that are here actually predate the Char being here as well. They're from a much, much older, apparently human civilization, because, that's even despite the huge size of a lot of this, a lot of the scale is human-sized. But that civilization is long gone, and several of the things actually, that you learn as you go through the game, there actually are, several long dead extinct races of humans on this world, and the current race of humans that's on the world may not actually be native to the world known as Tyria at all. But anyway, that's why there are all these ruins, and you've seen some of the ruins are clearly ruins that have to be thousands and thousands of years old, because there's no proper geologic context for the ruins to be found where they are. Like there's mountainous upthrusts pushed right through some of these ruins. So a lot of these ruins predate, geological shifts. Now, of course, sudden geological shifts can happen spontaneously and suddenly. We don't know the geologic history of the area. Some of this stuff, a lot of these ruined things may actually be fairly recent. We don't know that for sure. But we have differing architectural styles too. There are several of these things that look very much like dwarven architecture. Once we get to the part of the area with the dwarves in it, you're going to see that there's parts of the dwarven architecture that's reflected in some of this other stuff. The dwarves are an ancient race on Tyria. Matter of fact, they kind of disappear after Guild Wars 1, which is something that bothers me, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. This particular quest that I just picked up, where we're tasked, we see that old Mac is upset that Althea had his rogue bull killed because it was terrorizing everything. We get some dialogue from Gwen, if you ever noticed it, where she talks about how that old Mac keeps letting that bull out, and it has even hurt people. But anyway, we've killed the bull, and so now old Mac wants us to go get him a new pet, because apparently the bull was much more of a pet than the actual money-making process for a farmer. And he wants us to get him a devourer egg so that he can raise a devourer as his new pet. This storyline actually continues on into the next part of the game. It's not just some kind of odd thing in pre-searing. There are two ways to get a Devour Egg, and this is the easier and faster way, which is if you've got the, what is this, Dull Carapaces that he takes, you can trade them for a Devour Egg. I think he always has one. You can always get a Devour Egg here. I believe the only use for a Devour Egg is, I think this is it, here in Pre-searing. So, okay, that's got our quest for Old Mac. All we have to do is turn that in. And we're going to officially take Ranger as our second profession now. Which means that we need to get pointed to where our next Ranger trainer is. Because there should be, since we actually took it as the profession, we qualify for all three of the trainers that we can get for Ranger, just like we qualify for 3 trainers as a warrior. Now, we don't get, in the secondary profession, you don't get the primary skill of your secondary profession. Turn in secondary profession now, so that gets that part of the game taken care of. The primary skill of a ranger is marksmanship, just as the primary skill of a warrior is strength. So as a secondary ranger, we don't get marksmanship, so we'll never really have the ability to use a bow as a primary weapon, because we won't be able to access any of the bonuses or a lot of the skills necessary for it. But the main thing that I wanted to take to get as a ranger secondary is they've got some pretty good heals. Not as good as a monk, but nothing's good as a monk on healing. The animal companion, and then there are, we'll get later in the game where you can set traps. And you can set a trap, start a combat out by setting a trap right underneath you, and so everybody who comes up to you and attacks you, you'll have an area of effect damage a wide variety of them that we can work with. And that's how you get Gwen. You can always go out and get Gwen and she'll follow you. Okay, I guess it's time we'll go ahead and get the Grawl invasion quest out of the way. There actually is a hard part of this, and I'm not paying attention to it at the moment because I forgot about it until a little bit later. There are Grawl that, just wander through this area. The ones we're looking for are up here on this rise, except they're not always on the rise. There are, I think, 2 or 3 of these Grawl in this area that are actually, their name is Grawl Invader. None of the other Grawl in the area count towards the quest, only the ones that are labeled Grawl Invader. And they're not always on that hill, even though they're supposed to be. Okay, that way off in the distance there is a drake. And we're going to go ahead and go take that on. I can't remember if we do it now. If we do it, I don't think it's right it's important because, well, not as important now as it used to be, but it's one of the few higher level mobs in the game. So if you're doing pre-searing leveling, it's one of the things that you have to hit regularly because it is one of the few things that will give you experience once you level up quite a bit, just because it's a higher level monster. One of the things though that's a major headache is brute collars can be, small brute collars can be a major pain in the neck because they will call a scatter in the area to attack their target. There are areas, and we're going to hit one of them before too long, where it can kill you. Now this is something that bugged me once I realized it, and it's just a product of having not played this game in a long time and not paying attention to my map at the moment. We're sent to go find Ivor Trushot, who's our next trainer, to give us a couple of skills. And we're right next to him right now. He's on this little island out here. You cross the bridge, you climb a hill, he's right up here. I don't see him right now. He'll probably pop up somewhere as we run around this island, and I end up looping all the way around this island and winding up right back where I started and don't even realize it, and ran right by Ivor the whole time. But anyway, so we'll be coming, yeah, see, it's on the main map right now. Those two spots, there's a collector and Ivor Trushot right on top of that hill. Anyway, I completely missed him this time, and we'll have to run back and get him later. Okay, this is the spring we've been looking for quite a while. Verified Hunter's Horn west. After we kill everything in the area that's attacking us, all the bears and everything, we're going to head back towards the back of that spring purification spot that we and that's all that's required to purify the war. And then we need to go find Aiden, who's way down at the far end of the stream, to turn that into. And he, along with Ivor Quickshot, are our two other ranger rangers. More brute callers. This is the fishing village mentioned earlier. If we headed off back to the right, we would wind up in that area between Lakeside County and Foibles Fair. You know, where we got the bear pelt drop earlier. If we continued on in that area that was infested by bears, you head through that valley and you wind up at the fishing village too. Yeah, I didn't mention it at the time. Picked up another die. It'll be my second die in pre-searing. I don't know for sure which game it was that started, I don't know what you'd call it, die elitism. I think it was the Noob comic, web comic, that, made the joke about you could tell how elite a particular guild was because they all wore Duke sunglasses and dyed true black socks. And the point on the die being that black is the rarest dye, it's the most expensive, and usually something inconsequential that no one ever sees on your uniform. Kind of like if you dyed your underwear black, but it's underneath your armor and you never see it. That's the dyed true black socks. The point being that, the rarest, hardest to get, most expensive dye in the game, and their guild is so elite that they used it on something that you can't even see. In Guild Wars, black is the rarest dye by far. It's worth twice as much as the next rarest dye, which is white, which is worth I guess probably 50 to 60% more than the next rarest dye, which I think is red, and we've got a red. But anyway, I think if I remember correctly, the order goes black is the most rare and the most expensive, most sought after, then white, then red, then blue, then green, then orange, brown, and yellow, and then silver. Or silver may actually be a little bit up higher. I can't remember now. Silver's actually really useful in that you can, more than any of the other colors, you can mix it with other dyes to give a slightly different tone. It kind of helps in making a character look unique. Anyway, once we get to the next part of the game, I'll have access to all of my old storage. If I remember correctly, I've got quite a bit of dye saved up there, although I used a lot for some characters. Okay, that finishes off the work for Aiden. We still have to do, I have to remember to go find Ivor True Shot and get his 2 skills, which I'll remember to do here in a little bit. But for right now, time to sell everything off and get ready for the next step in our journey. And basically, I just kind of kill things out down this road just to map out a bit. I'm still at this point, I still wasn't entirely sure if I was going to try to do, you know, a 100% guide on pre-searing, or basically that's kind of what I was leaning toward, trying to bring the last 3 hours of play, when I started thinking, you know what, I'm really ready to just move on to the rest of the game and see the story. As is, moving from battle to battle in this game is so slow. I'm, you know, really thankful that I finally have the ability to do some actual video editing with some kind of quality to it and actually speed this up some, because a whole lot of the videos I've done for the past year have just been so slow.